Listening is a lost art, and I believe that it is so worth getting back. In our fast-paced, always-on, nonstop culture where performance and accomplishment and busyness reign supreme, it seems that many individuals have lost the ability, and possibly even the desire, to listen, to really, truly listen. To listen to people, to listen to their conscience, and to listen to silence. First, listening to people well requires being fully present in the moment and giving the other person your absolute best, as if there were no one else around. Most interactions we have with others are not like this. They are brief and superficial and unremarkable. Many times, the other person seems preoccupied or distracted, isn't listening with their heart, and you can tell that they'd rather be somewhere else. And that's such an awful feeling, especially when you really need someone. We've all been there. Plus, as Stephen Covey states in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. Instead, they listen with the intent to reply. We've all done it, and it seems almost natural for us to do it, because we want to provide answers and solutions and sound great and wise and brilliant to the other person. But often, it isn't what the other person really needs from us. Another important benefit of listening to another person is that you can actually remember the things that they say. For example, how wonderful do you feel when someone you only met once remembers your name? It's like, holy moly, they actually cared enough about me to remember my name. And so many people make the excuse that they're awful with things, but I think that's only because they don't really listen. When someone remembers our name, it often surprises us. But why does it surprise us? I mean, shouldn't it be the norm? Unfortunately, in this day and age when almost everyone is running around and hustling and scrambling and trying to make life work for them, it just isn't. It's rare. And it is therefore such a breath of fresh air and therefore so powerful when you listen well to others. Plus, if none of that motivates you, it honestly makes you more attractive. People are strongly drawn towards those who are good listeners. And this is one of the most consistent things that I have personally learned and benefited from over the years. In work situations, in friendship situations, in relationship situations, people are drawn to me because they know that I am a great listener, because it shows them that I really, truly care. Okay, this is going to sound a little bit self-indulgent, but I wanted to reach out to a few friends and just ask them for their honest and candid thoughts about Samir and listening. And here was some of their feedback. And my goal in sharing these quotes is just to show you that it really does matter. My friend Tammy said, "When I speak to you, you are always present in the conversation. You are so present that you have been able to always know whether it is advice that I need or simply a safe place to fall. And you always follow up with me after a conversation a few days later and specifically repeat some of the things that I shared with you that I was concerned about or excited about, and you ask me for an update. It continually blows me away because oftentimes I will forget that I shared a certain thing, but you don't." My friend Dan said, "You seek to understand my heart, and that often goes way deeper than just the words that are coming out of my mouth. Words are formed in the head and then are manipulated by emotions. But when you fully engage with someone and ask them questions and strive to understand and empathize with their situation and approach them with love, well, then you begin to see what is going on beneath the words and what's going on in the heart. And at that point, you are truly hearing them." My friend Lee said, "Whenever I have needed to talk, you have responded as a true friend and a stellar listener just by being there. You have allowed me to direct my all-consuming thoughts in a more helpful manner so that there can be some sort of forward movement. Your listening inspires actions. Sometimes it inspires reflections. Regardless of the outcome, the next step is now made clear because you have a genuine interest in my well-being." Sensing this from the listening party is paramount to the true release of feelings. So, there you have it. I mean, you get it. It matters so much. Put in the effort to listen well to others, and you will change lives, and your own life will be changed for the better. My second point. Listening to one's conscience, I believe, is one of the best ways to keep you from having regrets that you don't want to have, and from making mistakes that you don't want to make. Because honestly, when we are doing something wrong, if we slow down, if we stop to think about it, we recognize that, you know what, we don't have a complete peace about it. New York Times bestselling author Richard Bach has said that your conscience is a measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully. French philosopher Gaston Bachelard has said that the subconscious is ceaselessly murmuring, and it is by listening to these murmurs that one hears the truth. But oftentimes, we don't stop or slow down and turn off the rationalizations and justifications that we employ when faced with hard questions. We just dismiss the momentary conviction and we move on. But I really feel that there is at least one thing, and perhaps more, that each and every single one of us would change about the way that we are living if we were actually forced to stop, really reflect, and listen to our conscience. Unfortunately, though, we have either intentionally set up our lives or unintentionally allowed our lives to be readily sidetracked by distractions and activities and noise and stimulation, constant entertainment. A.W. Tozer has said that entertainment is a refuge from the disturbing voice of conscience, as if we are afraid, in part, to allow our mind to go to places that we don't want them to go. Because then the unpleasant emotions and thoughts come rushing in, and we just really don't want to deal with them right now. But as Socrates has said, and as you've heard before, the unexamined life is not worth living. Think about that. Not worth living. That makes me sad for all of us if that's the direction in which we're headed. Not listening to my conscience pretty much always sets me up for pain and regret. One particular situation comes to mind. So, a couple of years ago, after breaking up with a long-term girlfriend, I was pretty devastated, lonely, sad. She was my first love, and it was really hard to get over, and I kept trying to heal and move on, but nothing was making me feel any better. And, I wasn't meeting anyone new that I could have really strong feelings for to sort of take her place. So I just struggled for months and months and months. It was pretty awful, and I tried to figure out what might make the feelings of loneliness and sadness go away, but I just felt completely stuck. I just wanted to be unstuck. So I started to think hard about just doing something completely reckless, because it would probably make me feel better, at least temporarily, and serve to medicate me and somehow help me to get through what I needed to get through. So I decided, if nothing improves anytime soon, I'm seriously going to take a summer off and go and backpack across Europe and meet random girls and make out with them and roll around with them and not care about anything, at least for a while. Now, people who know me would say that that is totally not something that I would do. But my point is that I was in a really low place, and when you're in a really low place, you start to consider doing anything that might help relieve the pain a little bit. To be honest, I didn't have a complete peace about it when I considered it, but I just found certain rationalizations and I just focused on them. That it wouldn't matter. That everyone has a rebellious season in their life, and I just hadn't had one as of yet. That no one cares anyways about what I do or what I don't do. That maybe it'll actually teach me certain lessons that I need to learn in life that I otherwise wouldn't learn at all. That it could therefore somehow be good for me. Well, the months went by in the first half of the calendar year, and I kept thinking about this plan of mine, but I also kept hoping and searching and just listening for some sort of way out. Because deep down, I did not want to do this. I just wanted to stop hurting. And I just wanted something to happen so that I could make sense of it all and just feel better. But I felt almost forced into a corner where, this could be my last resort. Of course, it wasn't my last resort, but it's funny the things that we tell ourselves to just try to get through the rough stuff of life. Anyway, my way of listening was to seek out God and keep reading books and talk to older adults who sort of pour into my life and mentor me, and otherwise just make myself available to listen and to learn and to figure things out. Well, this led me going to a personal development conference hosted by one of my favorite authors, Donald Miller. And at that conference, finally got clarity. Donald Miller talked about how, at the end of it all, We want to have lived a beautiful story with our lives. And if that's the case, we shouldn't intentionally let any scenes into our lives that would mar the beauty of that story. That's what I needed to hear. I wanted to have a beautiful and powerful and uniquely special love story down the road, and I knew that it was going to happen in time. Just stay patient. And I realized it would be such a shame to sort of undermine it by being reckless during a season of temporary struggle. My third point, listening to silence, or really just sort of blanking out and allowing space to think and let one's subconscious mind process life circumstances and challenges, is one of the best ways to arrive at solutions and creative ideas and answers that the conscious mind just cannot come up with. And that's because it is way too busy receiving and sorting and dealing with the fire hose of stimuli that constantly assail our senses. I've realized that I need downtime, so I've had to purposefully schedule it into my life to just be still and quiet and receptive. And doing this has shown me that creativity and great ideas don't come from uniquely brilliant brains that only a few of us possess. Instead, they come from silence. Some of you can relate to this as you consider those standing in the shower moments, when you have nothing else competing for your attention and just time to let your mind go anywhere that it wants. And every once in a while, that brief amount of time provides you with a fantastic thought or idea. Well, apart from showering, I try to sit and just revel in silence for at least 30 minutes, if not more, every single day. And I can't emphasize just how important blanking out is. And when I say blanking out, I mean cutting out absolutely everything else. So it's just you there with your mind, which may very well be really hard for you. My friend can't go to sleep without the television on. Some people can't drive their cars without music on. And some people cannot walk to class or be at a stoplight or wait in line without always checking their phones. And you might say to me, it's harmless. Who even cares? It's just how I do life and what works for me. It doesn't matter at all. But if it doesn't matter, I challenge you to not do it for 2 weeks and just give your mind space in those moments. And I bet that you'll tell me that it was really hard and you didn't know what to do with yourself. And it probably would be rough for days, maybe longer. But eventually, you'll turn a corner and maybe you'll start to appreciate the downtime, the space, the silence. Maybe you'll start remembering things that you wanted to remember. Maybe you'll have more creative ideas. Maybe you'll be less frazzled and overwhelmed and more appreciative and even grateful of all that is around you, including the beauty of people, places, and moments. Life becomes really good and so much less of a chore and so much more of a total blessing when you start doing that. Earlier this year, I gave up social media for a month. Now, there's nothing wrong with social media at all. In fact, it's part of my livelihood. But I just wanted to intentionally not use it to give me and my mind more space and more of an opportunity to listen. And during the short season, it really benefited me in a number of ways. First, my mental energy was not spent thinking about my friends' status updates and tweets and photos and videos and other web-based flotsam and jetsam, which for the most part, if you and I are real with each other, doesn't really matter. Instead, my mind was free to think about and listen to my inner circle of family members and really close friends. And I felt less divided and spread too thin and had more energy and time and motivation to actively care about the ones that I truly love. And ultimately, isn't that what we really want? Higher quality relationships with those closest to us instead of superficial relationships with tons and tons of people? Plus, my mind was free to think about me and my life and my goals and my health and my hopes and really becoming all that I wanted to become. It's like I got back to basics because I didn't have those distractions. I felt like my decisions were sharper, that I also knew sort of what I needed to do and what I needed to stay away from was so much more clear and black and white and less gray and noisy. I loved that so much, and it felt like this veil gets lifted from your eyes. So, now that I've shared with you the importance of listening well to others and listening to your conscience and listening to silence, I want us to consider the following question. What if we just don't bother to recover the lost art of listening? what happens to us as a person and as a society. Well, I feel that in time, we will irreparably lose out on so much, and our lives will fall well short of their potential. All of us are in search of some sort of meaning and some sort of purpose, and all of us, I believe, want our lives to matter and want to leave an impact on this world. But as you probably know by experience, life tends to pick up speed as we get older, and entropy moves us towards laziness and passivity and ambivalence and cynicism unless we are driven enough to actually care and fight against that tide. So we just have to be intentional. And this is what I believe will help move our society forward in a healthy and innovative, symbiotic manner. My last point. As you listen to this talk, you are probably thinking about yourself and applying its message to your life and to your current situation. Maybe you realize that you've kind of lost the art of listening, and maybe, just maybe, you can see how it's been wasteful at best and downright harmful at worst. Well, the cool thing about every new morning is that we can start afresh and make a change. And sure, it's not going to be easy, and it's going to just require you to make a commitment and stick with it, but it will be so worth it. Others will be drawn to you as you strive to be a better listener, and that will make you a better friend and a better person. Plus, you will definitely keep yourself on the straight and narrow by tapping into your conscience and allowing it to save you from headaches and heartaches. And you'll have a sharper and more creative mind as you eliminate distractions and noise and just give your subconscious mind space in which to operate. Many people are looking to distinguish themselves, to set themselves apart from everyone else in unique ways to make their lives better. And in that quest, so often we overlook the simplest things that are staring us right back in the face. Recovering the lost art of listening is simple in its blueprint, but it's definitely not easy in its execution. But it is so worth doing, and I truly hope that you're inspired to give it a try. Thank you.